In terms of diagnosis of when you would walk again and when you would be able to play ball again, what was their diagnosis? When did they say that would be able to happen for you?
I think they thought I wasn't gonna be able to play no more.
Wow. And I think today you're going to show them a little different, and we'll get to that later. But
yes, sir.
Very powerful story. Now, how did you manage to stay? Because your principal tells me all the time how positive this kid is and what a good role model he is for not just kids but for other people who are going through difficult circumstances. Mm-hmm. How did you keep yourself motivated like that?
First and foremost is God and the strength that he gave me to believe and have faith in not what the doctor said but what I believe, and that's what motivated me the most.
Yeah. So you're working towards your grades.
Yes, sir.
We talked a little bit earlier. You told me your ultimate goal was to get back on the basketball court so we could play, and I'm going to beat you by 1 or 2 points. I don't know. You're a little taller than me, so we got to work on that. But definitely very proud of the accomplishments that you had. What advice would you give to other people who are going through any kind of situation? It may not be the same situation that you're going through, but it's a situation in their life that they find difficult. What advice would you give to them?
Stay positive and just have faith. And believe. I know it's going to be stressful. That's all about life, but just stay positive. That's all you got to do.
Well, I've enjoyed my time talking to you. You are definitely an inspiration, not only, like I said, for students, but for other people who are going through things, not just here in Clayton County, but everywhere. So thank you for hanging with me today.
Yes, sir. Nice.
Tremaine is truly an inspiration. Oh, yeah. Remember the prognosis of never being able to walk again? Tremaine, what do you have to say about that?
Doctors told me I may never walk again, but anything you put your mind to, you can do it. You gotta believe in yourself.
We'll be back in just a moment.
Today is Saturday. Yeah. Salad on Saturday, fruit on Friday, throw a ball Thursday. Water Wednesday, touch your toes Tuesday. Let's move Monday, spark a snack Sunday.
60 minutes of physical activity a day and eating well can help get your child healthy. So keep them active and eating well every day. Get ideas, get involved, get going at letsmove.gov. That's letsmove.gov.
You may or may not know Dr. Stephanie Phillips. She is Clayton County Public Schools Deputy Superintendent, the #2 person in charge of the day-to-day operations for the school district. From working closely with Dr. Phillips, I know her to be many things. She is a brilliant professional educator with a wealth of knowledge about financial and support operations for school districts. She loves her family, and she is a great person of faith. Her tireless dedication and relentless work ethic helped to ensure that the Clayton County Public School District regain its accreditation. Unbeknownst to many, Dr. Phillips is also a breast cancer survivor. Her story is not just one of courage and overcoming difficulties, it's also about the love of family. Joining us with her story is the unstoppable Dr. Stephanie Phillips. So who is Dr. Stephanie Phillips?
Well, I guess you could say I'm a mother. I take that very seriously. A parent. I'm a wife. I'm a daughter. I'm a friend, a colleague. I'm a deputy superintendent by job description, but truly I'm a leader, an educator, and a child of God.
Now, how was your transition coming from California to Georgia? That's a big leap. How was it? It was
a big leap. But I think it's a big leap for my family primarily. I kind of knew what to expect. That my family and I have gone through job transitions, and we've moved around the country a little bit. So I think that the primary thing that I was concerned about were the transitions for my sons. They were both, one was entering high school, one was in middle school. So those were critical years for the kids, but I think my husband and I really had a handle on what it was going to be like and some of the transitional issues we might face. Just learning new friends, learning the area, that type of thing.
So as we talk about transitions, you've experienced many. And I think there's one life transition or challenge that I want to speak about specifically, and that's the fact that you're a breast cancer survivor. Talk about the day that you received the news that you had breast cancer. What were your feelings? What were the dynamics of the thoughts that you had during that time period?
Well, I'll take it back a little bit prior, that morning that I found out. I had some tests, some mammograms. I have family members who have had cancer prior to my diagnosis. And so, I was being careful. I was monitoring my own health and had a regular mammogram. And the doctor said, come back. We see something that's a little irregular, but nothing to worry about. So when I came back for the reports of those tests, I was kind of hit square in the face with the fact that I was being diagnosed with breast cancer. In my mind, out of the blue, because I was not expecting it. I hadn't felt a lump or anything like that. So I was totally caught off guard. I was at the doctor by myself. And so I kind of sat there, and she said, I have to tell you, you have breast cancer. And I didn't hear a thing she said after that. I mean, my mind was swirling. And it was a real interesting moment because she was talking to me about options and what, my prognosis really looked like, but I didn't hear her because, I was going through the emotional rage at that time.
Right.
So at that time, I didn't call anybody. I chose to stay in the hospital and get some preliminary work done, my blood work, some chest x-rays that the doctors needed to continue to figure out what kind of treatment I was going to get. At the end of that, I was kind of stable enough to drive, and I decided at that point to go back to work.
Oh, wow.
I wasn't ready to have the conversation in my mind. I had continued, I needed to process it a little bit more. So I went back to work and I didn't tell anyone, and I worked for the rest of the day.
Right.
And then on the way home I called, I said, well, I need to tell somebody before I go home and tell my family.
Okay.
So I called my mother, and my mother was a little taken aback. I think she was a little bit nervous, and so we kind of went through some conversations, and I told her what the doctors had told me after I had a chance to process it. And she was very encouraging, but just as you could expect, a mother hearing that your daughter has a life-altering disease or potentially fatal disease, I'm sure that was pretty nerve-wracking for her. So after realizing how emotional it was for her, I was real hesitant to go home and have that same discussion with my husband because it was just a really emotional time. So kind of went somewhere after work, did a little shopping just to get my mind kind of balanced again. And then I called a friend, very, very close friend of mine, had that conversation, and I felt like I was ready to go home at that point and face my family. So it was still a little early prior to my children coming home from after school care, and I was able to contact my husband, and we had a conversation. And going through that with him was cathartic. I think he went through some of the same panic and some of the same frustration that I did initially, but I was ready to help him get through it by the time I got home because I was able to quickly kind of go through some of the stages of grief initially,
Right.
and then help him to kind of process and move forward. At that time, we decided not to tell my children that night because we were still, kind of dealing with it and trying to make sure that everything was going to be okay for them. And so, but by the end of that evening, we were laughing and talking about it, and it kind of went from not expecting it at all in the morning to that night being able to laugh and talk about the future after. Right. So it was really it was an experience unlike any other I've ever experienced.
Wow. Now, you mentioned your children. So at some point in time, it gets down to the fact that we need to tell them.
Yes.
So you tell them. How do you go about telling them? How old were they at the time, and how did they take it?